I'm Estelle Bingham, and this is the Love, Purpose, Connection podcast. Today I've come to talk to environmental campaigner, organic beauty brand founder and author of Stoned, Photographs and Treasures from Life with the Rolling Stones, Jo Wood. Jo has said if she could go back, there's nothing she'd change about her life. When she was 22, she married Rolling Stones guitarist Ronnie Wood, and for many years, hers was a true rock and roll life. Today, she lives here, off-grid, in this Grade 2 Northamptonshire farmhouse, grows all of her own vegetables, and also is a firm believer in reincarnation, aliens and UFOs. So let's go.
What do you want in your matcha? I've got coconut sugar.
I'd love some coconut sugar. That would be wonderful for me. Thank you. Jo, you are like the original blonde Pocahontas. I mean, it's like you've been on holiday for 6 months.
Hiawatha. I suppose I have. Holiday on my own. You know, they say that when you spend time on your own, it's very good because in order to go out, you go in. And I love being on my own. I love it when the kids come over, but then I hate the mess that they leave, like yesterday. I just like being on my own. I never thought I'd ever say that.
You've got to quite a peaceful place then.
Yeah. I'll go up and meditate. Oh, I think I might have a bath now, mid-afternoon, fabulous. And I just get into doing things around the house, you know, hanging curtains and putting up I'm quite happy. And so for all those years that I was married, when I was suddenly single, I thought, I'm so lonely. My kids had left home and I was in a really awful, well, not for long, 2 months, I'd say I wasn't happy. And then slowly, but since I've been here, I actually really like being on my own. Everybody says to me, how can you be on your own in that house in the middle of nowhere? It's pitch black. So, yeah, I don't know, I'm fine. There you go, coconut sugar there.
Was it rock and roll milk we're drinking? What's it called? Rebel milk.
Rebel.
To
be a rebel. No famous woman wasn't a rebel, huh?
Yeah. Darling, should we sit down with our matcha?
Yes. Come through here.
Oh, wow, this is nice. Look at this. It's fabulous. So, Jo, we've had chats. We've already had matcha. You've made me a matcha in your kitchen.
Yeah.
And here we are. And I do want to welcome you to the Love, Purpose, Connection podcast. And this is a moment that I have manifested.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, completely.
Okay.
Because I saw you on Bear Grylls, the island.
Yes, I love that.
And you were there getting on with your thing, just doing your stuff, you know, really peaceful. Everyone else was sort of having all sorts of things go on. Yeah. And you were on a rock and you were talking about UFOs to someone. And I thought, actually, do you know what? I just need to be there to having a chat with Jo about UFOs.
Well, you know, the weird thing is that we were on that island there and I went off, you know, looking to see what was round the bend there, and came across this bit with these massive stones that weren't like any rock that was around. They were so out of place. So that was Alien Beach.
Did you call that Alien Beach?
Yes.
I love that.
I love being on the island. It was great. I've always wanted to do something that would push me to and bring out all of my survival skills throughout my life and push me to see if I could survive. Because I know I could. But I wanted to see if I could. And I was there with a load of younger people and I enjoyed every second, even though it was really hard, because I knew I'd never get a chance to do that in my life again. Came back, I wanted to find my own island and to do holidays where people could disconnect from now, take their kids who are sitting there on their phones all the time, take their wife because they were having a terrible marriage and bond on an island where they had to survive, because you do. I would love to do that.
So you're talking about this deepening and these really precious moments with yourself, the disconnecting. Has this been something that's been all through your life as a theme, or is this something that's just sort of emerged more recently
Yeah, I think it has emerged more recently in my world because up until, I suppose, 10 years ago, when my marriage broke down, I was so absorbed with my ex-husband, and it was all about looking after him, making sure he's eating, what's he doing now. Da, da. I didn't really have time for me. And then when I became single, I went to see my friend in Los Angeles. And she said, "Jo, I've got a birthday present for you." I said, "Oh, thank you." She said, "It's 3 days with Sadhguru." And I said, "Who the hell's Sadhguru?" She said, "Jo, this is my present to you." I went, "Oh, okay." So I checked into the hotel and it was 3 days solid, just talking with Sadhguru, meditating, doing yoga. And whilst I was doing that, they showed this bit of film of a pilgrimage into Tibet. And I went, "I'm going to do that." And I did.
You went to Mount Kailash in Tibet with Sadhguru.
Yeah, that was a great experience. That was Mount Kailash. Went up to 17,000 feet and sat there and meditated. Yeah, it felt amazing, actually. After the meditation, when I came back down the hill, I was so light and felt so like just, oh my God, I've meditated at 17,000 feet with Sadhguru. It was just such an amazing experience, actually. And he's talked a lot about not being pressured into wanting to have a relationship, to find myself first. First of all, I didn't really understand him, but I really do now. Because, I mean, I thought I should immediately have a relationship and, you know, go out and find a boyfriend. But what he wanted me to do is to just be happy with myself.
Do you think that moment where you're sitting next to that really ascended soul on the planet, that your soul had already chosen to do that at that moment?
Yeah, I really believe that there's something that says, right, she's going to go in this path and then she's going to break away into this path. And I mean, it's like this house. You know, I knew I wanted to move out of London. And then on 2019, I knew I had to go. And I got it sold. And then I started looking for houses. And I saw this house. I drove up here. I thought, it's not exactly what I want, but I could make it what I want. And I was just, I don't know why I didn't really fall in love with it, but I knew I could make it what I want. I was drawn to it. Somebody up there was saying, "You're going to live there." And so I got the house, and now my daughter's living around the corner. I've just planted 70 trees because I'm totally off grid here. My own water, my own electricity, my own everything. And I just, it's a mad thing to do, and I couldn't help myself but do it. Somebody has a plan, for me, and I think for all of us.
So this is a haven for you, isn't it? It's a really safe space.
Yeah.
And you're creating a heaven on earth here.
My own magical bit of heaven, yes. It's going to be beautiful here in a few years when all those trees that are planted all are growing, and it's just going to be magical. I know it is. I've manifested that. I can see it. I can feel it.
Let's back up a little bit to when you began your time here on the planet.
Yeah.
Did you ever imagine as a little girl that you'd be married to Ronnie Wood, a Rolling Stone? Did you ever imagine that you'd have this quite extraordinary life?
I knew I wasn't going to stay at home. Once I fell in love with Twiggy, I knew I was going to London to be a model, and there was nothing that was going to stop me. But when I was a kid, I suppose it must have been about 7 or 8, and we lived in Basildon because my dad was a model maker for the council, Basildon Council. And this woman came to the door and read my mum's palm, and she said, "Your daughter will be surrounded in lights." My mum always said to me, "Remember that woman that said your daughter will be surrounded in lights?" Yeah, and I was only 7 or 8.
So she just read that. She picked up on that immediately.
Yeah, but I knew I wasn't going to stay in. I hated school with a passion. Hated it. And would sit there and say, I only need to read learn to read, and I only need to add up. I don't need any of this. And art, I loved art and I love cooking. So then when I left school at 16, I went up to London and I started modelling. My father, first of all, said, modelling is another name for prostitution.
But they believed that in those days, didn't they? They did believe that.
I thought, wonder what a prostitute is.
Yeah.
But I remember walking up there and getting on the train by myself and going to do my first job. And it was the most fantastic experience for me. It was just, I thought, that's it. This is it. And then I met my first husband when I was 17.
Wow, so young.
Yeah. He was in the rag trade. We got married in Vegas when I was 18. I had Jamie when I was 19. And then I left him when I was 20.
That's quite a lifetime, isn't it, by the time you're 20?
Yeah.
So you're a single mum at 20?
Yeah. But it's funny because I was modelling for Freeman's catalogue and we went to Los Angeles and Las Vegas. And we went to the Hilton one night down to the bar, and there was a guy. There's always somebody like this. There was a guy and he said, I want anybody to give me an item of theirs that they own and I will tell you about that person. So I said, I'll put my watch in. So I put my watch into the basket as it went all round. And he picked up my watch and he said, this person is a Pisces. And he said, within a year, she will be on the west coast of America pushing a pram. I laughed.
But that was spot on.
It was absolutely, and I was 22. I met Ronnie. And a year later, September 78, I just gave birth to Leah.
Wow.
Isn't that mad? Yeah.
And then you're on the road?
I went on tour when I was pregnant. And so that was the 78 tour, but I didn't do the whole tour. I went back to our house in Los Angeles. And then there was a New Barbarians tour in 81, where wild and crazy. And then there was a big break until 89 because Keith and Mick were arguing. And then 89, we went back on tour. And on that tour, I was sick because I had misdiagnosis and they thought I had Crohn's disease. So for 2 years, I was on steroids. Oh, I felt they take your soul away. And I thought, I can't live like this. And then I did this article in the paper and I got hundreds of letters from people with Crohn's disease. And I sat on the floor and I opened the bag and I read them all. And there's one letter I picked up. This guy said, I'm a herbalist. If you come and see me, I will put your Crohn's disease into remission for life. I got in my car, drove to Hastings, and he sat me down and said, what do you eat? And that's how I changed everything in my life, because he told me about food, he told me about GMOs, he told me about everything. And I sat there and it all made sense. And I went home and I went, right, that's it. We're not going to be having any of this crap food anymore. So I detoxed my body. And then after 4 months, I suddenly got these terrible pains. And I went into hospital and they opened me up and found that I had a perforated appendix. The doctor said it was mad that I was still alive. So I thought, from this day onwards, I am going to be an organic girl. And I have ever since.
And so that's really where it began.
That's where it began.
So your relationship with organic food.
And I became fascinated with it all. I still am. I mean, I've got this book. If anybody gets it, I'll get my nutritional healing out, find out what's wrong, and in this book, it tells me why, how, what. I mean, it's great. Keith once said to me, the trouble with, cause when I was going on and on about organic this and this going on, and he said, trouble with you, darling, is you're addicted to organic food. I said, coming from you, Keith, man, that's
something. It's quite something. Is that when you also started your organic skincare and all of to bring everything into alignment?
Well, my brother gave me a book called The Fragrant Pharmacy, and in it was recipes on how to make good face oil and stuff like that. So I started making face oils and drawing out little labels and giving them to my girlfriends. And I was so surprised that, oh my God, you can make this stuff. You don't have to buy it. And then my friend said, Jo, why don't you do this properly? I said, nah, I haven't got time to do that. And then I saw my kids are all growing up and my ex was busy painting and he'd got, all I was doing was cooking. I thought maybe I should do something for myself.
Doing what you do, which feels like, and you've done this, it sounds like you did this with your ex-husband, but now you're doing it, just doing it. Yeah. That real sort of centre of the home, real Mother Earth, it's who you are.
Yeah, it is who I am.
It's who you are really deep in your heart energy. Yeah. It's how you love.
Yeah.
And there's also that piece where, you know, it's the balance too, isn't it? It's like being the big matriarch and then not being consumed by that, kind of finding those other parts that also bring you joy.
I think it's being a matriarch, but also not being bossy and forceful and controlling, and it's being that mother as we are as women. You know, I love that part, and I knew when I went to the island that I was going to be the mother. And then, you know, on tour, everybody would come to me, oh, Jo, this is this and this. Used to be in the old days, Jo, you got any grass? Ah, yeah, here you go.
And now
it's, have you got a cure for my headache? You know, that sort of thing.
For my hangover.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think you've done that in a past life?
Maybe. Or actually, I know in one past life, I was an empress in Egypt. Because this psychic girl told me that she sees me with 2 dogs. Oh, that's nice. And I know in another past life, I was in the court of Marie Antoinette, because one point in my life, I was obsessed with Marie Antoinette. And I did this reading with this woman, and she didn't know how I felt about Marie Antoinette. And she said to me, in a life, you were in the court of Marie Antoinette. I went, I knew it. I just knew it.
Because that's how past lives come in. They resonate, and then we also relive parts of them. So that journey back to being with all the herbs and having the book.
I must have, because I'm mad about natural medicine. And I was talking to my kids the other day and I said, if I'm going to do a course, I think I should do one about, and that I can plant the herbs in my garden. I mean, I do it now. Like I've got elderberry bushes out here. So this year I collected all the elderberries and I've got loads frozen. And then my son-in-law's not feeling very well, so I took them out, cooked them up, strained them, gave him it. Yeah, Jack, yesterday, drink this down. I love elderberry.
Even to find yourself in that place where you're consulting the book, that's how past lives come in.
Yeah.
In this life. We kind of go back to old wisdoms. And that return is a return to self. So when sadhguru was sitting with you and he said, you've got to go back to yourself, Jo.
Yeah.
This amazing feminine energy that you have, and I can feel it. It sort of exudes from you, doesn't it? So the minute you open the door, it's there it is. It's very Piscean, very soft. You know, there's that real softness, but also there's that groundedness in there too.
Yeah. I think I'm very grounded, especially now, and especially here. And I wake up and I look out the window and there's always the robin nearby. I think it's my brother. I'm sure it is. When my brother, just before he got ill, because he had heart disease and diabetes, and this is last year, and I was just here, only been here a few months, he then came down with flu, COVID, because we'd just gone into lockdown. And then he was ill for about a week. Oh, no, and then we went to lockdown, and then he died on the 23rd of March. I always remember. 10 days later, my sister got COVID, and she went into hospital and she was in an induced coma. I thought, bloody hell, what's going on here? This is insane. But it was, and I think with my brother dying, it was, I just can't believe he's gone, really. And I think that's another reason, because I didn't go to a funeral. I haven't had real closure. You know, when my mum died, I sat with her that night, held her hand, felt her body going colder, looked at her face as life lifted out of it. And for me, it was quite easy for me to accept that she'd gone and she'd just, this is my old body, I'm out of here. But for me, with my brother, I still think he's down there in Essex, Still do. Sometimes I look at him and I picture of him and I just say, God, why did you, because I'm the older sister, why did you go, brother? He was my best friend.
And he's always going to be in your soul family. So you'll find that he'll come in and something will move, you'll know.
Oh, yeah, I've had lots of weird things happen. I have a thing with feathers. When I was on the island, I got up in the morning, one morning, it was the 10th of May, it was my mum's birthday, and I walked down onto the beach and walked through this little bit where there's a rock there and a big rock there to have a pee behind the rock. And so I walked there, had a pee, walked back, and on the floor was a pink feather. And my mum's favourite colour was pink. I picked it up and I thought, I have not seen a bird here with pink feathers. And it wasn't here 3 minutes ago. And it's my mum's birthday today. Gosh, this is a sign that she's watching over me on the island. I'm absolutely convinced. Anyway,
Completely.
I took that feather back with me. And I love that when I see things like that, because you'd be thinking about something and then you pass somewhere that says Saint Angel or something like that. I don't know. And you think, oh, yes, there you go.
So you believe in angels, Jo?
Oh, yeah. I've got angel paintings going up the stairs. I love fairies. I love angels, aliens.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk aliens, Jo. And I am loving the sound of Alien Nation, your podcast.
Yeah.
Why aliens? Tell me the story.
Well, I've always had a fascination about aliens. When I was a kid, walking down the hill, Vicarage Hill, going to school, I was convinced there was somebody behind me. And I'd look round quickly to see if I could catch them, but I could never catch them. And then my dad showed me an article, was Jesus an astronaut? And I'm Catholic, and I was like, oh my God, that is fantastic. Maybe he was. So then I forgot about it for years. But I always would think, what is out there? And we went to Recife on holiday with the kids. And it was the last night and we were going back to Sao Paulo the next day. And I was packing and Ronnie started shouting, Joe, get here. He said, there's some weird lights out in the sea. I thought, oh God, what's going on here? So I went out and there were these weird lights over the sea, but quite far out, a mile maybe. And the lights actually were reflecting on the sea. So he runs in to get his glasses. And as I'm watching it, it just lifted straight up like that and it stopped. And then it went to the right and stopped again. And then it went, and it was gone like a blink of an eye. And I stood there and I went, oh my God, I've just seen a UFO. Next day we got on the plane and we picked up the local paper that they had there and it said UFO invaders Brasilia, and hundreds of people had seen the same thing. So at least we knew we weren't mad.
Well, I've got a UFO story, Jo.
Oh, come on.
I'm in Sussex in a farmhouse with one of my greatest friends.
Yeah.
And it's 12 o'clock at night. We're drinking tea. And out in the fields, we see some lights. We think it's a rave because it's the 90s. We went outside.
Yeah.
Right down the end of a country lane, pitch black. And the lights there are lights. And basically it hovers. And then we're like, that's not a rave. It's that moment where you're like, that's a spaceship. And it's a triangle.
Oh, you saw a triangle one.
With lights. And it comes up and literally goes over and it goes over the farmhouse. We turn round and then it disappears. Split seconds. We did send a letter to the Ministry of Defence and they sent us a letter back saying, well, it's a UFO. It's an unidentified flying object because we can't tell you what that is. Okay, so 2021, we've got this amazing vision for this full slice of heaven here in the country. Joe's slice of heaven, the bees, the butterflies, the birds.
The pond.
Yeah,
the vegetables.
The apple trees.
The elderberries. Yeah, everything.
Anything else you'd like to manifest?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to manifest the perfect man that thinks the same wavelength as me and who adores me. I am manifesting him at the moment. I don't know where he's going to appear from, but I am manifesting him. He's got to be one hell of a guy.
Because you love yourself in the good way, right?
Yes, in the good way.
You honour yourself.
Yes, and it might be an old love from another life has got to come back in. I can't end my days without this soul. Yeah,
you're looking for the union.
I've had it before.
So you're looking for that really equal relationship where you're met completely and wholly.
Yeah, and it's like right into aliens and meditation and exercise and all that, and organic food. When they come in, they've got a bag full of organic apples, and that would make me happy.
Yeah, with a bit of the rock and roll, because let's not forget
creative.
Creative. Like I mentioned in the kitchen, whilst you were making the matcha, you are the blonde Pocahontas. But it's also, it's time, isn't it?
Yeah, let's bring him in. I think about him, but I do know that I am equally as good on my own. I don't need a man. I am good on my own.
And that's when he'll show up.
Yeah. If you say to yourself, I don't want to be unhappy, I am going to be happy, you change your mindset.
It's all about changing the mindset.
It's all about changing the mindset. And if you can change your mindset, always look at the positive.
Well, it's the gratefulness. It rewires the brain. If you can be with that every day, it just rewires.
Yeah.
When I say the words love, purpose, connection to you as we come to the end of this podcast, Joe, what do those words, how do they feel?
For me, it feels to love and connect with everybody. And that's really important, especially now. And to bring light into everybody's lives, even with so much darkness around at the moment. So love, purpose, connection is what we all should be trying to do, have love with a purpose and connect, yeah.
Thank you so much for making this happen, Joe.
This is the feather that I found on the island, and my mum's favourite colour, she even had a pink house, was pink, and I found it on her birthday 3 years after she died, laying on the sand.
That just appeared on the island?
Yeah, just as I came back from my wee, where I'd just walked before, 3 minutes before, there it was lying on the sand like that. But I stood there and looked around and I thought, where are the birds? Where are the pink birds? I knew it was from her, without a doubt. There you go. Do you want anything before you go? Are you hungry? Do you want an apple?
Joe, an apple?
Yes.
Are you serious? Of course I have an apple.
Shame it's not summer.
What planet do you think I'm on? Earth?
Come on get an apple. Actually, that's not such a good apple. Let me go to my fruit basket. Fruit bowl. Okay, nice apple over here.
To find out more about Jo, she's at Jo Wood Official on Instagram. You can listen to that Alien podcast. It's called Alien Nation. And of course, you can find me at Estelle.Bingham. If you've enjoyed the show, do rate and review it. This podcast is produced by Sarah Cudden with exec production from Kate Taylor. It's a Feast Collective production. Until the next one, wishing you all more love, purpose and connection.